Okay, so now that we've gone through all that conversation about the process and how we're going to interview people, and we've thought about job descriptions and all that, now we've just got to have a bit of a quick conversation about, well, how do we determine how much this person's going to get paid? And in fact, what is the payment method? How's it all going to get put together? So what we start talking about is remuneration for a role, okay? Or more to the point, how do we compensate it? And that's what we're talking about. It's the reward or compensation given to the employees for their work performance. In other words, how do we pay you? And in what terms? Is it always just cash, or is there other things we might want to consider as well? And what that does is that provides the basic attraction to a potential employee to perform the job efficiently and effectively. Okay, so obviously the money's tied to it. All right, obviously by having a good package or having a good plan, what that's going to also do is it's going to help motivate the employee. If they feel they're being adequately recognised and rewarded for doing their role, they're going to feel more inclined to continue to perform in that role. All right, so often it's not the only motivator, of course, okay, it's not always about the money, but getting the money right can certainly help people feel that they're being recognised and appreciated. It doesn't always have to be about the money as well, and that's what we're going to cover in a minute, about different types of forms of ways we can give them that recognition and their compensation. Okay, so it does still motivate them, and what we need to make sure is that it's fair and consistent, because if it's not, it can impact our productivity. If they ever feel a position where there's a discrepancy or inequality. If you're paying one person $5 and the next person $4 and they're doing the same job, you can pretty much bet yourself that the person getting paid $4 is going to wonder why they're not getting the same deal as everybody else. Once they feel that sense of inequality and injustice, you can pretty much be sure that what follows is probably not tidy for you as a manager. Okay, so we're trying to make sure that everyone feels equal and there's no discrepancy there between how we treat people. Okay, that people are duly compensated for their level of effort, work, etc. All right, so moving on from that is that their work performance will be affected. Okay, that we have the ability to affect both positively and negatively their work performance by the way we pay and recognise and reward them. Okay, so it's actually a strategic tool, and if we get it wrong though, it actually creates dissatisfaction, which will lead to poor performance in the long run. So once again, we have to balance the tool carefully, make sure that it's transparent in the way we apply it, and start to go from there. Now, what we're talking about there, and as I say, it's not always just about the money. Obviously, wages and salaries is the most obvious. Okay, so we talk about how much we pay, it's a salary package, etc., and we pay, obviously, the cash. We can also add incentives, financial or otherwise. Okay, so there can be different incentives that we offer to bring in there. We start talking in terms of productivity. Okay, so usually the incentives linked to productivity, sales, and profit. Okay, so that's what we're normally linking the incentives to. Their productivity, their sales and profit, start to create those extra incentives that they've got there. We start to look at, there are other things we can give them which are fringe benefits. Okay, now when we're talking about a fringe benefit, we're talking about some sort of payment or some sort of thing that's outside the normal wage and salary, such as medical care, hospitalisation care, accident relief, health insurance, their uniforms, their canteen services. There's all those extra little bits and pieces that we can add that aren't necessarily the money, okay? So there are a bunch of fringe benefits we can also do, and there can also be good perks for working with us, okay? Good perks might include, company car, might include gym memberships or club memberships, paid holidays, apartments, houses, that sort of stuff, okay? So there's a whole lot of different things there. So that's really some sort of, at the end of the day, they're sort of still financial rewards, okay? We've got that incentive, we've got the wage and salaries, we've got some fringe benefits that they can take advantage of, but there's also some perks, which is some of the fun stuff, but that's still financial to your company. But there's also a range of non-monetary benefits that we can consider, okay? So we can consider giving them, instead of just, compensating them with dollars, we can also think about, well, what about giving you a more challenging job responsibility? Let's move your responsibilities up so you can get some more experience at a higher level, because that experience might help you get the next higher level job. Okay, so, we're recognising that, we're engaging them, we're saying you're performing well at this stage, let's have a tryout of you doing something else, for your benefit and development. You can do recognition of merit, so you can give merit certificates, you can give all sorts of employee of the month, there's all that sort of funky stuff there. That we can get involved in that doesn't have to always be about the money, okay? Sometimes it's just about that they did the effort, they made the effort and you noticed them, okay? You can also make sure that they take advantage of the growth or promotion aspects. So, you know, positioning them for promotion, development, you know, mentored training, etc. You can make sure they've got good supervisors and make sure they're being well supervised and get opportunities there, once again, to expand and develop their skills. Or it might just be more comfortable working conditions, you know. Just put in something basic that they're going to enjoy. Hey, you did really well this week, let's get a new coffee machine. Or, hey, you guys have done really cool this time, so let's do this, okay? So little things you can bring in there that are just going to make the working conditions that little bit nicer, okay? So, you know, there's all sorts of stuff you can do in that. You know, the sky's the limit. Now, what's driving this is there's various factors around. You need to think about what's the labour market doing. You need to think about what's the going rate for that role. You need to think about what's the productivity expectations. You know, how much goods are you expecting to produce? How much money are you going to be earning from that? You've also got to think about, you've got to balance the salary you offer against the cost of living on the broader picture. Okay, so that's going to affect how much you pay them, and also the government regulation. When you're thinking about how much you're going to pay them, there can be an award or condition that's already in place that stipulates what the minimum wage is that you need to think about. So you need to do a little bit of homework and research to find out what those things are, okay? If there's heaps and heaps of labour available, that drives down the price. If they're a specialist and there's not a lot of them around, that's going to drive up the price and you're going to have to attract them from somewhere else. You'll work out what the going rate is. You'll know roughly what's going on there and how much it is, particularly for contractors. I want someone to do this. It's going to be about X amount. You know, as I say, the productivity expectations, so what it's going to produce for you in terms of income or loss. The cost of living, okay, if you're not paying enough and they can't afford to, you know, work for you, they're not going to come. And also the government regulations to make sure that you're hitting at least the bare bones minimum. All right, there's also a social expectation for the role or what they're expecting to get, and we need to think about what the economy is doing as well. So all those things are going to come in and start shaping how much you're expected to generate in terms of wages, salaries, fringe benefits, perks, and those non-monetary things, okay? The social expectations is a big thing as well. If you say it's a director of a company, they're going to expect the director of a company salary. We know what that is out there, okay? And if the economy is doing well, they're going to start expecting pay rises. If the economy's gone down, well, they'll probably be a bit more negotiable because they'll be happy to have a job in some degree. But, you know, we need to think of the bigger picture and make sure that we're giving people a fair pay for the fair amount of work and that we're compensating and rewarding accordingly. Okay, so we've thought about what was remuneration. We can still continue on with different factors. Look, there's going to be different internal factors that shape your decision making. Okay, and those internal factors are things like, well, what's your business strategy? Okay, so where are you going? How does this job fit? Or how does this contractor fit? Is there a longer term thing you're trying to build here? Are you bringing in someone junior to train them up over time? Are you trying to get a senior person from the get-go and you just want to get the best person for the job, no further training? Okay, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to develop a network of freelancers that you're going to continue to work with all the time and you want them to prioritize you ahead of other people, in which case you're going to have to be the guy that rewards them, or the person, lady, female, whatever, that rewards them better than the other people to try and always retain that person. Okay, so you're not trying to buy loyalty, but you're trying to make sure that you've developed a mutually beneficial relationship with that person. You need to think about what's the job evaluation and performance appraisal like. Okay, so how are you evaluating that job? How are they going to do performance appraisal? Are you going to have a bonus scheme attached to that? You know, what's going to drive that internally? And also think about, the vision and mission of the organisation. What are we trying to do? How are we trying to encourage our people to deliver to our customers what we say we're doing? Okay, that vision and mission, really, really strong point. So they know what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it and what the end state needs to be, so that when you're talking to them, you can give them that really clear guidance on what you want from them. All right, now obviously what's going to come into that is thinking about that job description. Okay, if the job evaluation, job description we've done, to make sure that we're looking at their skills and the experience required to do the job and we're paying accordingly. If we're saying we need a highly skilled, highly talented, very experienced person, we're obviously going to have to think about how we're going to pay and reward and encourage that. All right, we need to have very good, clear job descriptions in our organisation so we can put one next to the other so we can start to establish the relative worth of the jobs. Some jobs, high decision making, high leadership, highly skilled versus an entry-level unskilled person, etc. There's obviously going to be a bit of a pay discrepancy there. I have seen some organisations that just pay everyone the exact same. I'm not entirely sure how that works. I'd be curious. If you come up with a model for that you think works, let me know. I'd love to see it, and with great curiosity. But at the end of the day, you're probably going to find that there's going to be a bit of a tier structure where the higher paid, more sophisticated, and harder the job is, obviously you're paying more for it, and the lower it is down there, thinking about your minimums, that's where it's probably going to be. So what we do is we then can aggregate the jobs. We can look at a job hierarchy to say, look, this is sort of executive level, maybe this one's a management level, maybe this one's a supervisor level, or maybe this is entry level. Okay, and then we can start to think about what are the compensable factors. So what do I need to pay for? All right, what are the key points in there that are going to derive value? And then what we can do is we can make sure that we go through a process of just double checking that, making sure that we've got it right, and we can do that internally by doing a pay survey. Okay, so we can check by a pay survey, you know, what people have got, what people are getting, to establish what the prevailing wage and salary rates out there in the labour market. You know, and that's information we can get off a market or even within our own organisation to find out what's going on. We can look at other companies and see what they pay, and we can sneakily get that information if we want from job ads, or sometimes that's public information as to what their terms and conditions of employment are. We can go to a labour department, we can talk to the trade unions, we can get consulting firms. There's a lot of places we can get the information that's going to tell us what's going on in there. All right, so the challenge is making sure that we're then following it up by making sure that we're paying for the skills, that we're doing frequent reviews of pay, okay, so don't just leave it. Some organisations leave a long time between pay reviews, makes it a little bit hard, but at the same time, we don't want to be reviewing it every 5 minutes. Okay, so you need to come up with how often are you going to look at your pay scales. You probably want to negotiate them every couple of years, set something in place to go for a few years, and away you go. Pay secrecy can be a bit of a thing, depending on what sort of way you're paying people. Obviously, people don't always want to talk about how much they're getting paid. It can be a very touchy subject, and there can be a lot of privacy attached to that as well. So you've got to think about, well, how are you going to get that information if they're external to you? They probably don't want to talk to each other, and sometimes you don't want necessarily everyone talking to each other and compare, because sometimes people will compare the salary, but not understand there's a different comparable worth, okay? That this person's more senior role than this one, or they have an extra responsibility. A lot of the time they're just two people talking. They say, well, how come you got more than I did? And that can create problems there. So you don't really want to have that. And the other thing is that international pay rates do affect it, because at the end of the day, you're a business, and you're in an international market, and you've got to think about, well, you know, how are we paying this? Is this a global thing or is it a local thing, etc. So look, there is a lot to it. You have to do your research. It is a bit of an art form. It's not an exact science. And if you pay too much, you can attract the wrong people who are just there for the money. But if you don't pay enough, then yeah, you can get the wrong people there, okay? You know, there is that thing of, you know, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. But if you pay truffles, you get pigs. Okay, so look, you know, you're sort of stuck in the middle there. The main point is, though, is if you've got two jobs that receive the same number of points in a point ranking, so you put them side by side, they have to be paid the same. So if you work out that this is a management role and does this, and this is a management role that does that, and they're about the same, you've got to make sure they're paid the same as well. Okay, because what you really want is for people to be equal, treated fairly, and in a balanced manner. All right. Have fun with your pays.